Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change your entire life in ways you never imagined. What happened to me at that grocery store checkout line turned into the most unexpected career opportunity I could have dreamed of. The fluorescent lights of the grocery store buzzed overhead as I stood behind an elderly woman in the checkout line, my mind racing through tomorrow's job interview. I had been preparing for weeks to interview at Henderson and Associates, one of the most prestigious consulting firms in Chicago. My resume was polished, my outfit was pressed and hanging in my closet, and I had rehearsed my answers to every possible question until I could recite them in my sleep. The woman ahead of me was small and frail, probably in her 70s, with silver hair neatly pinned back and wearing a simple navy cardigan that had seen better days. Her cart contained the basics: bread, milk, canned soup, a small package of ground beef, and some generic brand medications. Nothing fancy, nothing extravagant. Just the essentials of someone living on a fixed income. I watched as the cashier, a teenager with purple streaks in her hair, began scanning the items. The total climbed steadily: $12, $15, $18, $22. When the final beep sounded, the display showed $24.67. The elderly woman opened her worn leather purse and began counting out crumpled bills. $1, $2, $3. Then she moved to the coin compartment, carefully extracting quarters, dimes, and nickels. I could see her hands shaking slightly as she counted, and my heart went out to her. "I'm sorry," she said quietly to the cashier, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think I'm about $3 short. Could you please remove the ground beef?" The cashier sighed impatiently, already reaching for the package of meat. Behind us, I could hear other customers getting restless, shopping carts shifting and quiet murmurs of annoyance. It was 5:30 on a Tuesday evening, peak time for commuters grabbing dinner ingredients on their way home from work. Without thinking, I stepped forward. "Excuse me," I said, pulling out my credit card. "I'd like to pay for her groceries." The elderly woman turned to face me, her eyes wide with surprise. They were a striking blue, clear and intelligent despite her age. "Oh no, dear. I couldn't possibly ask you to do that." "You're not asking," I replied with a smile. "I'm offering. We've all been there." The cashier looked between us uncertainly. "So, you're paying for all of it?" "Everything," I confirmed, handing over my card. As the transaction processed, the elderly woman placed a gentle hand on my arm. "Thank you so much, dear. You have no idea what this means to me. My name is Margaret Henderson." "I'm Brooke," I replied, not really paying attention to her last name. "And it's really no problem at all." Margaret smiled warmly as she gathered her bags. "Brooke, you have a beautiful heart. I have a feeling good things are coming your way." She paused at the end of the checkout counter and looked back at me. "What do you do for work, if you don't mind me asking?" "I'm actually between jobs right now," I admitted, feeling a slight flush of embarrassment. "But I have an interview tomorrow at a consulting firm downtown." "How wonderful," Margaret said, her eyes twinkling. "Well, I'll be thinking of you. Good luck, dear." She shuffled away with her groceries, and I completed my own purchase. A frozen dinner, some coffee, and the chocolate I definitely didn't need but absolutely wanted. As I walked to my car, I felt good about what I had done. $24 wasn't going to break my bank, and seeing the relief on Margaret's face had been worth every penny. That night, I went through my interview preparation one more time. Henderson and Associates was known for their rigorous selection process and their commitment to excellence. They worked with Fortune 500 companies, providing strategic consulting and operational improvements. Landing a position there would be a dream come true for someone like me, fresh out of business school with more ambition than experience. I had sent my resume months ago and was thrilled when I received the call for an interview. The position was for a junior consultant, entry-level but with incredible growth potential. I had researched every executive at the firm, memorized their client list, and even studied the layout of their office building downtown. As I lay in bed that night, I couldn't help but think about Margaret. There was something about her that stuck with me, not just her gratitude, but the way she carried herself. Despite her financial situation, She had maintained a dignity and grace that was admirable. I hoped she was doing okay and that the groceries would help her through the week. The next morning arrived gray and drizzly, typical Chicago weather that matched my nervous energy. I put on my best suit, a charcoal gray ensemble I had splurged on specifically for job interviews, and took the train downtown. The Henderson and Associates building was a gleaming tower of glass and steel in the heart of the financial district, 37 floors of corporate ambition reaching toward the cloudy sky. I arrived 15 minutes early, as planned, and spent the time in the lobby reviewing my notes one last time. The reception area was impressive: marble floors, modern art on the walls, and a water feature that probably cost more than my car. Everything about the place screamed success and sophistication. "Brooke Matthews?" A young woman in a crisp white blouse approached me. "I'm Jessica, Mr. Henderson's assistant. He's ready to see you now." My heart skipped a beat. I had expected to interview with the HR department first, not with Mr. Henderson himself. According to my research, James Henderson was the founder and CEO of the firm, a legend in the consulting world who had built his company from a small operation into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. We rode the elevator to the 35th floor in silence, Jessica making small talk about the weather while I tried to calm my racing pulse. The executive floor was even more impressive than the lobby, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the city and Lake Michigan beyond. "Mr. Henderson will be with you in just a moment," Jessica said, showing me into a conference room with a polished mahogany table that could seat 20 people. "Can I get you some water or coffee?" "Water would be great, thank you." She left me alone with my thoughts and the spectacular view. I could see the lake stretching to the horizon, dotted with sailboats despite the overcast sky. This was it, the opportunity I had been working toward for years. I straightened my shoulders and prepared to make the best impression of my life. The door opened, and I turned to greet Mr. Henderson with my most professional smile. But instead of the distinguished businessman I had expected, I found myself face to face with Margaret from the grocery store. For a moment, neither of us spoke. She was transformed. Gone was the worn cardigan and simple appearance. Instead, she wore an elegant navy blue suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her silver hair was styled perfectly, and she carried herself with the unmistakable confidence of someone accustomed to running a major corporation. "Hello, Brooke," she said, her familiar voice now carrying an authority I hadn't noticed the day before. "I'm Margaret Henderson, CEO and founder of Henderson and Associates." I felt my mouth fall open. "Margaret, but yesterday." She gestured for me to sit down, taking the seat across from me with a knowing smile. "Yesterday, I was running a little experiment. You see, I've found that the best way to judge someone's character isn't through their resume or their interview performance. It's by watching how they treat people when they think no one important is looking." "An experiment?" I managed to say, still trying to process what was happening. "I do it occasionally," she explained, folding her hands on the table. "I dress down, go to places where I might encounter potential employees in their natural environment, and see how they behave. Most people walk right past someone in need. Some might offer sympathy but no real help. Very few actually step up and make a difference." Jessica appeared with my water, and I gratefully took a sip, buying myself a moment to think. "So the whole thing with the groceries was completely real," Margaret assured me. "I needed those groceries. I was genuinely short on cash. I had forgotten to stop by the ATM. And you genuinely helped me without expecting anything in return. That tells me more about who you are than any interview question I could ask." I looked at her with new eyes, seeing both the vulnerable elderly woman from yesterday and the powerful CEO sitting before me now. "I don't understand. Why would someone like you shop at a regular grocery store? Why not have assistance or delivery services?" Margaret laughed, a warm sound that filled the conference room. "Because I refuse to lose touch with the real world. I built this company from nothing, starting in a one-room office above a deli 40 years ago. I've never forgotten where I came from, or the struggles that ordinary people face every day. That's why our company has been successful. We understand real problems because we stay connected to real people." She pulled out a folder and opened it to reveal my resume, along with several pages of handwritten notes. Now, let's talk about your qualifications. Your academic record is impressive, MBA from Northwestern, with a focus on organizational development. Your internship recommendations are glowing. But what really interests me is this volunteer work you do at the Literacy Center. I had almost forgotten I had included that on my resume. It's just something I do on weekends, nothing major. Teaching adults to read is nothing major? Margaret raised an eyebrow. Brooke, you spend your free time helping people develop skills that will change their lives. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need here. The interview continued for another hour, but it felt more like a conversation between colleagues than a formal evaluation. Margaret asked thoughtful questions about my approach to problem solving, my ideas about corporate responsibility, and my long-term career goals. I found myself being more honest and open than I had planned, discussing my genuine passion for helping businesses operate more ethically and efficiently. "Tell me about a time when you had to make a difficult decision," Margaret said, leaning back in her chair. I thought for a moment, then decided to share something personal. Last year, I was offered a position at a major investment firm. The salary was incredible, more money than I had ever imagined making. But during the interview process, I learned that they were involved in some questionable practices. Nothing illegal, but certainly not ethical. They were advising companies to cut employee benefits and outsource jobs overseas, purely to maximize short-term profits. "What did you do?" "I turned down the job," I said simply. My friends thought I was crazy. My student loans certainly thought I was crazy. But I couldn't work for a company whose values didn't align with my own. I'd rather make less money doing work I believe in than make a fortune doing something that keeps me up at night. Margaret nodded approvingly. "That decision probably cost you $50,000 in starting salary." "Probably more," I admitted. "And you'd make the same choice again?" "Absolutely." She made a note in my file, then looked up at me with the expression I couldn't quite read. "Brooke, I want to share something with you about my company's philosophy. We don't just help businesses make money. Anyone can do that. We help them make money while making the world a little bit better. Every recommendation we make, every strategy we develop, has to pass what I call the grandmother test." "The grandmother test?" Would I be comfortable explaining this decision to my grandmother? Would she be proud of what we're accomplishing? It's not always the most profitable approach, but it's the approach that lets us sleep well at night. I felt a surge of excitement. This was exactly the kind of work environment I had hoped to find. That's incredible. I've never heard of a consulting firm operating with that kind of philosophy. Most don't, Margaret agreed. Which is why we're selective about who we hire. We need people who understand that true success isn't just measured in dollars and cents. She stood up and walked to the window, gazing out at the city below. "I started this company because I wanted to prove that businesses could be profitable and principled at the same time. 40 years later, we've worked with hundreds of companies, helping them improve their operations while also improving their impact on their communities." "What kinds of projects do you work on?" I asked, joining her at the window. "All kinds. Last month, we helped a manufacturing company redesign their production process to reduce waste by 60% while increasing efficiency. The quarter before that, we worked with a retail chain to develop an employee ownership program that gave their workers a stake in the company's success. Next week, we're starting a project with a tech startup that wants to ensure their platform is accessible to users with disabilities." I could feel my excitement building. That sounds like exactly the kind of work I want to be doing. Margaret turned to face me, her blue eyes studying my face carefully. "The position we're filling is for a junior consultant, but it comes with significant responsibility. You'd be working directly with clients, developing recommendations, and presenting findings to C-suite executives. The hours can be long, the work can be challenging, and our standards are extremely high." "I understand," I said, trying to keep the eagerness out of my voice. "The starting salary is $75,000, with performance bonuses and a comprehensive benefits package. After 1 year, assuming satisfactory performance, there's potential for promotion to senior consultant with a corresponding salary increase." I tried not to let my surprise show. 75,000 was more than I had dared to hope for, especially for an entry-level position. But here's the thing, Brooke, Margaret continued, her voice becoming more serious. I'm not just hiring you because of your credentials or even because of what happened yesterday at the grocery store. I'm hiring you because I believe you have the potential to eventually take over this company. The words hit me like a physical blow. I'm sorry, what? Margaret smiled at my expression. I'm 73 years old. I've been running this company for 4 decades, and while I'm not ready to retire tomorrow, I need to start thinking about succession planning. I need someone who shares my values, understands my vision, and has the intelligence and drive to carry this company forward into the next generation. I sat down heavily, my mind reeling. But you don't even know me. Yesterday was the first time we met. Sometimes you can learn everything you need to know about a person in a single moment, Margaret said, returning to her seat. The way you helped me yesterday, without hesitation and without expecting anything in return, told me that you have the character I'm looking for. Your resume tells me you have the skills. This conversation tells me you have the vision. She leaned forward, her expression intense. I'm not offering you the CEO position today, obviously. That would be years down the road, and only if you prove yourself capable. But I am offering you a career path that could lead there, if you're willing to work for it. I took a deep breath, trying to process everything that was happening. 12 hours ago, I had been an unemployed recent graduate hoping for any entry-level position. Now I was being offered not just a job, but a potential future as the head of a major consulting firm. I don't know what to say, I admitted. Say yes, Margaret replied with a grin. Say you'll take the job, work harder than you've ever worked in your life, and help me build something even better than what we have now. 6 months later, I sat in my own office on the 28th floor of the Henderson and Associates building, looking out at the same view of Lake Michigan that had intimidated me so much on that first day. My business cards read, Brooke Matthews, Junior Consultant, but Margaret had made it clear that titles were less important than results. The transition hadn't been easy. Margaret was a demanding boss who expected excellence in everything from client presentations to email formatting. She had assigned me to work on increasingly complex projects, each one testing different aspects of my abilities. I had stumbled at first, overwhelmed by the pace and the responsibility, but gradually found my footing. My first major success had come with a project for a mid-sized restaurant chain that was struggling with high employee turnover. Traditional consulting wisdom would have focused on reducing labor costs, but Margaret encouraged me to dig deeper. After weeks of research and interviews, I discovered that the real problem wasn't compensation. It was a lack of career development opportunities. Employees felt stuck in dead-end positions with no hope of advancement. Working with the client, we developed a comprehensive training and promotion program that gave employees clear pathways for growth within the company. The result was a 40% reduction in turnover within 6 months, saving the client hundreds of thousands of dollars in recruitment and training costs. More importantly, employee satisfaction scores increased dramatically, leading to better customer service and increased sales. That's the kind of thinking that sets us apart, Margaret had told me after the project concluded. Anyone can cut costs. It takes real insight to find solutions that benefit everyone involved. She had started including me in higher-level strategy meetings, introducing me to the firm's most important clients, and giving me opportunities to represent the company at industry conferences. The other consultants, most of whom had years more experience than I did, could have resented my rapid advancement. Instead, they seemed to understand that Margaret was grooming me for something bigger and offered their support and mentorship. On a rainy Thursday evening, I was finishing up a proposal for a new client when Margaret knocked on my office door. She had maintained the habit of doing her own grocery shopping, though I now knew she chose her stores carefully, depending on what kind of research she wanted to conduct. "Working late again?" she asked, settling into the chair across from my desk. "Just putting the finishing touches on the Morrison Industries proposal," I replied, saving my work. "I think we have a strong case for their supply chain optimization project." I'm sure we do. Your proposals have been getting better with each one. She paused, studying my face. How are you feeling about everything? The job? The company? The direction we're heading? It was a question she asked regularly, part of her ongoing evaluation of my development. Honestly, I love it more every day. I wake up excited about the work we're doing, about the problems we're solving. Even the difficult days feel worthwhile because I know we're making a real difference. Margaret nodded approvingly. Good. Because I have something I want to discuss with you. She pulled out a folder, much like the one from my interview 6 months earlier. The board of directors has been asking about succession planning. They want to know that the company will be in good hands when I eventually step down. My heart began to race, the same way it had during that first meeting. I've told them about you, about your progress and potential. They'd like to meet with you next month, not for anything official, just to get to know you better. Margaret's eyes twinkled with the same warmth I remembered from the grocery store. I think it's time we started talking seriously about your future here. I took a deep breath, remembering the uncertainty I had felt just 6 months ago. Margaret, I need to ask you something. Do you ever regret your decision? Hiring me based on one encounter in a grocery store? She laughed, the same warm sound that had filled the conference room during our first official meeting. Brooke, that encounter told me everything I needed to know about your character. Everything since then has just confirmed what I already knew, that you're exactly the kind of person this company needs leading it into the future. She stood to leave, then paused at the door. You know, I've been thinking a lot about that day lately, about how a simple act of kindness changed both of our lives. You helped me when you thought I was just an ordinary woman who needed assistance. That's the kind of leader I want running this company, someone who sees people as human beings first, not as opportunities or obstacles. After she left, I sat in my office for a long time, watching the lights of the city twinkle in the darkness beyond my window. I thought about the journey that had brought me to this moment, about the choices I had made, and the unexpected turns my life had taken. That $24.67 I had spent at the grocery store had been the best investment I had ever made. Not because of the career opportunities it had opened up, but because it had connected me with someone who shared my values and my vision for what business could be. Margaret had taught me that success wasn't just about personal achievement. It was about creating opportunities for others and making a positive impact on the world around you. I pulled out my phone and looked at the photo I had taken earlier that day. Our entire consulting team celebrating the successful completion of a major project that would help a local nonprofit expand their services to underserved communities. Everyone was smiling, proud of the work we had accomplished together. This was what I had always dreamed of: meaningful work with people I respected, the opportunity to make a real difference, and a future full of possibilities. And it had all started with a simple decision to help someone who needed it, without knowing who she was or what she might be able to offer in return. Sometimes the most important moments in our lives are the ones that seem the most ordinary at the time. Standing in that checkout line, watching an elderly woman count out her change, I never could have imagined where that moment would lead. But I'm grateful every day that I chose kindness over convenience, that I saw an opportunity to help rather than an inconvenience to avoid. As I finally packed up my things and prepared to head home, I made a mental note to stop by the grocery store on my way. Not for Margaret's research purposes this time, but because you never know when someone might need a helping hand, and you never know how that simple act of kindness might change both of your lives forever.